Sam and Bill, I want to shift gears and talk about the role of education because it's another report in this kind of mini series that's coming out now. And Sam, I maybe want to start with you that I think in public policy conversations, we talk about so much that education is the key variable, is the silver bullet. Again, I might say it's family, you might say it's religion, others might say it's education, but really all these things are kind of integrated. So I want to ask you, what did you find in your research about how the role and the presence of religion in public life has a positive impact on just the way we teach our kids?
So one of the things that we didn't mention in the earlier segment is what are the actual values that faith and certain belief teaches us? And I focused primarily on sort of the institutional positives such as community and support. But one of the things the report finds is that religious institutions, or rather most religions and systems of faith, promote education and inquiry. This is a core belief system. And if you look at so many faiths, they've set up an incredible network of kindergartens, in many cases, elementary schools, high schools, colleges and universities. Some of our best colleges and universities are sponsored or were organized by different faiths. Brigham Young in your neck of the woods, Yeshiva University here in New York. I grew up right next to St. Joe's University in Philadelphia, which was a Jesuit school founded in the Jesuit worldview. One of the things that becomes very clear when you study or look at faith and the values of faith is that they like education. And not only do they like education, they are open to disagreement and dialogue. I can't stress that enough. Far from being dogmatic, and yes, certain schools do have certain principles they live by, and that's a choice if you go there and you have to follow them. The fact of the matter is almost every faith believes in viewpoint diversity, and they encourage dialogue across difference. And I can't stress that enough. Some of the best schools for that are like Brandeis University. Yes, there are certain places that you have to keep kosher. Yes, it has a pro-Zionist orientation, sure, but it also is incredibly respectful and encouraging of difference and dialogue across difference. So when we think about religion in the public sphere as it intersects with education, rather than see it as something that should be separate, we should see it as a force that promotes education. And here in New York, when you think about where do you send your kids, yes, there's some private schools. There are certainly public schools, and then there's an incredible network of faith-based schools, and they do incredible work. So I guess the takeaway would be, rather than see religion as some closed-minded, narrow set of ideas where you worship a god or something else, the fact of the matter is, if you want to promote education, look toward religion, because religion is not opposed to it, it's supportive of it, and is a place that not only anchors people with values, but then encourages debate over those values. Jews relish the idea of Hillel and Shammai, and we have books and books and books, many behind me, that basically feature arguments, because that's how we learn and grow. And it's very clear that people who tend to be more faithful tend to believe that's absolutely in the data. They like dialogue, they like debate, they like discourse.
Bill, it sounds like some of what Sam's describing are things that we need more of today, just in our political culture, our civic culture, where if folks are worried about echo chambers, we're already getting that in our online news consumption and sort of the political polarized boxes that people find themselves in. And I think one of the things that's an outgrowth of that is this pretty intense debate over ideas of like the separation of church and state. And I want to ask you, not from a legal standpoint, but from sort of a cultural standpoint, that I think, again, just from my perception, there has been this modern view that, well, religion is something you do privately in your own church or synagogue, in your own home. And when you come into the public square, you kind of leave your religion at the door, so to speak. And it seems like there's ample data showing not only is that not accurate, it actually is very limiting to the role that faith can play. How have you seen that? Because I know we've talked before about the role of religion in our public institutions, either today or at their founding. How would you articulate that is a value that people need to be reminded of and bring with them into these conversations?
Yeah, I love that question. And the one of the things that struck me most when I was looking at data about universities in particular, but primary and secondary schools too, that are religious, is that they provide a really, like Sam described, a needed diversity in the way that we look at education and other factors as well. But I want to think about education for a minute, and I think it goes to your question about, well, how does this affect just public life? Like how does it impact people who are not religious? And one of the things that I think is most powerful is that because religious motivations are different from other kinds of motivations, or to be maybe more concrete about that, because public schools have a different set of considerations that they're sort of operating by than religious schools, they're likely to do different things. And some of the things that religious schools are doing are precisely answering, or let me say directly answering, some of the concerns we see just in education generally. To take one example, one of the major problems in higher education is completion. People start college, but they don't complete college. Religious institutions or schools that are operated by religious institutions or with a faith mandate have an advantage there, because all of their students who subscribe to even in a general way, even in kind of a very basic way, to the values of that institution, have a commonality immediately that makes belonging a little easier to develop. There are other examples too, in terms of introducing people into school who you don't come from a background of higher education in their family. Religious schools seems to do better in those things, and they're modeling new ways of approaching things like college completion, innovation in the way that they provide credits, getting underserved communities access to education, and I think that the reason is because the motivation is different. People of faith often believe that they have an obligation to be educated, like Sam described, also to serve others who would otherwise be neglected in that process. These are you can't really replace that with just kind of better government programs.
Sam, I think one of the things in your report I want to ask about is sort of the effect on religious youth. So in an educational setting, is there a correlation with behavior, with academics, with like a civic engagement, and what kinds of things did you find that, again, tell us what the straight line is, so to speak, between religion and its role on the young people being educated?
Well, you had asked about is there a line for civic behavior, and the answer is yes, because they're a set of values, and the values are consistent across many faiths, which is, don't be so selfish. There's a world bigger than you. How we define it and how we think about it differs by faith and view a little bit, but that idea that you are just part of a much bigger system is nonetheless really critical here. And in recognizing, in many respects, that you are small, which is why so many Jews wear a kippah. The idea is there's some higher power above you. The idea then is it sort of centers you. It makes you realize, okay, I'm part of a bigger system. How do I become a meaningful member of that crew? And it's very, very useful. As Bill was talking, I was just thinking about my undergraduate days and who some of my closest friends were. And they basically fell into two categories. They were either members of the Mormon Church, LDS, either getting ready to go off to a mission or coming back from a mission, or they were Catholic. And I really didn't have very many agnostic or atheist friends, and there were plenty at Stanford, where I was as an undergrad. And I found that I could not, and this is not a universal judgment against anyone, I want to be very clear. It's not that I couldn't talk to the atheists and agnostics. They just didn't think about things in the same way I did. Whereas when I would talk to folks who were deeply Catholic and faithful, and I would talk to members of the LDS community, we disagreed on quite a bit, but we agreed on quite a bit, and it led to the most amazing all-night conversations. We had a shared set of values, a shared set of questions and interests, and I wanted to learn from them, and I certainly feel that they wanted to learn from me. There's almost a willingness to be more open, to listen, and to then be heard and want to hear others when you feel comfortable at your very core and foundation. And again, just like with our last segment, I don't have great data on that. It's very hard to survey that. But over 21 years of teaching, I have found that my more religious students who have that sort of grounding and that core tend to be more open-minded, tend to question more, and tend to want to know more because they're not searching as much on a day-to-day basis, and they feel comfortable in their own skin and who they are. So I hope you don't mind that anecdote, but I think there's quite a bit there. When you feel grounded, you're open to being challenged. You're open to listening, and you're open to have more debates. And I think there's probably something to that.
Thanks for watching that clip of Defending Ideas. For the full conversation, click the link in the description and make sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your shows.